4.5. Okay.
I think. Well, you're on here, so.
Okay. It's all good.
Good. You're good.
Hi everybody, this is MaDonna from Mad Bees Quilt and Sew, and it is Monday, so here I am sewing with you again. Today we're working on this baby Bargello pattern, and this is our second week, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about cutting and getting your pieces ready for sewing next week, okay? So we have 12 fabrics in this. They are 3/8 of a yard, and we need to cut 4.5-inch wide strips. So I feel very fortunate because this mat that I have is actually a two-sided, two-colored mat. And I really like working with that because that way when I'm doing different colors of fabrics, light versus dark, I can see them so much better. I do line up my body and my mat so that the numbers are going from left to right, and it just seems to work the easiest for me that way. I've got my fabric that last week we best pressed a little bit, and now what I want to do is make sure that I've got it straight of grain and that I'm going to give a first cut to it to get rid of anything that's not on the grain. So I have got my piece of fabric. I'm just going to open it up. I'm going to shake it a little bit so that it lays out exactly where it wants to be. And I'm just going to watch it for a second, moving it left and right. And you can see how it kind of moves back and forth so that they hang very straight. Straight doesn't mean that they're going to be right on top of each other. Straight means that the two selvages are winding up on top of each other. And then I'm just going to smooth it out with my fingers. I can either smooth it out with my fingers, or if you've got a ruler, you can just kind of smooth it out with the ruler, which is a great way to do it because it gets rid of the wrinkles and it gets rid of the offness of it without it stretching it. Sometimes with our fingers, we have a tendency to push too hard. This just smooths things out really nicely. The Quilter Select ruler, though, if you put it on this side, it won't go anywhere. So you've got to use the back side of it. So now when I'm straightening it up, I can actually see, if we look up underneath here, this is about 1/4 of an inch shorter underneath there. And I need it to be really nice and straight when I'm cutting these pieces. So I'm going to use my selvage line, put that straight on one of the markings, and then I'm going to just follow that across to the other side of the mat. So I am at this point using the mat as my marking tool. I hear people say never use your mat. Well, you do have to at some point to start off with. So I'm going to line up the number 4 at the bottom and the number 4 at the top and just clean up this ugly little end here. Okay? With my rotary cutter, I'm going to make sure that I kind of offset my body a little bit, move over to the left so that that way I can cut nice and clean. This rotary cutter you just tap to open. I'm going to set it down and I'm going to cut. And I'm stopping and walking my hand so that it's even. And you can see my arm is just really nice and straight. It's not bent, it's not pushing in, it's not doing anything crazy. Once I've done that, I'm going to just pick up my ruler, close my cutter, pick up my ruler and get rid of that ugly piece. Now, this is when I'm going to start using my ruler as my guide versus my mat. Okay, and you'll hear this quite a bit. Don't use your mat because you could count over 4.5, but your mat may change depending on what project you're doing. Your ruler is going to stay much more consistent for you. So I'm going to set this right on top, and I kind of set it a little bit differently. I look for my marking of my 4.5 at the far edge. And then I kind of play with it so that I know it's covering all my fabric, and I watch it set down right on top of my fabric. And now it's right in place. And I didn't have to move it and skew it and play with it a ton of times. I just have to set it down once. So I am at 4.5 because that's what it tells me to cut this at. I need two strips measuring 4.5 the width of the fabric. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and cut. Again, I'm moving my hip over. I'm going to put my cutter down. I'm going to slowly go up to about my hand. I'm going to move and go again. You don't want to go too slowly because then you're going to see your fabric start to move on you. Go ahead and cut, move your hand, and cut all the way off. And I go past the fabric and then I stop. I pick this up. I move away my good piece of fabric. I look up at the top again. I line up the top edge with the 4.5. I slowly set it down on top and just making sure that's a really nice marking there all the way along the edge there. And you can see I have just the right amount of fabric there. So I want to do this to all of my fabrics that I have in my collection. Okay, when I get to a color that matches too much to my mat, flip your mat over. One of the other things I'm going to suggest is have a new mat. Give yourself permission to go get a new mat. Mats are expensive. Deanna, that looks like it's going to fall off the edge of the table. It's making me a little nervous. Okay, so we have a tendency to cut in one direction, but then every once in a while we start to cut the opposite way. And if you do a lot of cutting the opposite direction on your mat, you'll actually make like a little divot in it. And if you've ever noticed when you're cutting along and you miss a thread, it may not be that you need a new blade. It may be that you're hitting a spot in your mat that you've worn into. So you have to kind of play that by ear and see what it is. So for next week's class, next Monday, I need you to have all of your fabric cut into your 2 strips. So you have 12 different pieces. Cut those into your 2 4.5-inch wide strips, and you'll meet me back here about the same time. Everybody have a great week. Enjoy your cutting. Remember to move over, walk with your hand, and cut nicely. Have a great day.